Chin chin, everyone. Welcome back to another interview with an amazing guy. Not only is he a fantastic runner, he also has a great sense of humor and has been producing some amazing videos on YouTube, which we may or may not share as we go along. But and also, I'm sure it's going to make you feel like this. I'm feeling glad all over, yes, glad all over, baby. Glad all over. Yes, without further ado, let's bring on, all the way from Boulder, Colorado, although he's originally from New York, it's none other than Stephen Gnoza. Welcome, Stephen.
Hi, thanks for having me. And I've got my coffee here.
We've got the tea here. Yes, obviously we're stereotyping now Americans coffee, Brits with their tea.
Yeah, hey. And I'm in Colorado now, but I just can't shake the New York accent completely. So,
how long have you been in Boulder?
My wife and I moved out to Boulder about 2 years ago, right before the pandemic hit. That summer before the pandemic. So we were into the whole leaving New York City thing before it was the trendy thing to do.
Yeah, is everybody leaving New York now, or leaving big cities? I think with what's been happening.
Yeah, I mean, so I kind of got to the whole work from home. So why am I living in a city thing a little bit early? I had been working an office job and then got a remote job, 100% remote, a couple of years ago. And yeah, it was like, okay, like they're going to pay me the same amount if I'm in New York, or if I'm living somewhere else, why not try living somewhere else that's cheaper and more in line with the hobbies that we have and the things that we want to do. Yeah. And the pandemic, I think, just made that a reality for a lot of people.
Yeah. So. It is fascinating, Stephen, and we'll go on to, for those who are watching and you may not have heard of Stephen Gnoza, where have you been on YouTube? Because we'll be talking more about the humor and satire that he's been sharing in the Absolute channel. I'll leave a link in the description to his channel. If I said serious running and if I held this bottle up, I think some of you might recognize. And obviously Stephen straight away laughing. We're trying to keep straight faces here because when I was referred to it by Nick, big shout out to Nick, one of my subscribers, he only mentioned it to me literally a week ago. We are recording here on Wednesday the 19th of May, and hopefully this will go out on Friday the 21st. But I've got to say a big thank you to you, Stephen, for taking the time to come on this and interview. I don't know if you've done any interviews regarding your running and your satire before. Is this one of your first, or
this is one of the first. I mean, it's only recently taken off to the point where people, have been wanting to talk about it, or give me suggestions about it. I'm also getting to this weird place that I've never been before, where people are expecting more content, right? So something
I know the feeling. Yeah.
Something that started as a hobby that I do once in a while has now become, well, when's the next one coming out?
Yeah.
So
that people ask what we'll do before we go into the humor and fun, because it is utterly hilarious. And what we may do as we're recording this, we may share a little bit, if it's okay with you, Stephen, if I can work out how to do it on here, and people can see a bit of an intro to that. But before we go into that, we can find you on the usual socials. We can find you on Instagram and also obviously with YouTube, and I'll leave the link in the descriptions. But how did you get started in running? Because you sent a little brief bio, and I think it's sort of loosely related with your wife taking up triathlons, and you thought you'd do a triathlon because it'd be more interesting to do it rather than watch it. So is that how you got started in athleticism? And similar to me, you weren't really an athlete at school or college, were you?
No. So growing up, I spent my time playing video games, mostly Japanese RPGs like Final Fantasy. Turn-based role-playing games, and a lot of Mario.
You're like this all the time, all fingers and thumbs.
Yeah, you'd think I would have gone to rock climbing or something, but no. So I think what attracted me to games like Final Fantasy were that they were games with stories. And I think stories, if I'm looking for a common theme in my childhood, it's like, okay, I like those video games. I liked making videos with my cousins at the time. I was like that kid who roped all of his cousins into making video games. I tried writing my first screenplay at 16. It was horrible, but you know, a 16-year-old writing a 120-page document, like, okay,
Wow.
like this is just where my mind was at. And athletics was never on the radar at all. Fast forward a couple of years after college, my wife, girlfriend at the time, was getting into triathlons. And one summer she did a bike trip across the country, across the United States, with an organization called Bike and Build. And basically it's an organization that I think they're still around, that young adults cycle coast to coast, and along the way they volunteer at Habitat for Humanity projects and volunteer their time. And she called me up at some point during this trip. She had been cycling 50 miles a day or something on average. I spoke to her at some point during the trip, and she was like, I'm going to sign up for a full Ironman next year.
Did she know what a full Ironman entailed?
She did. She had done some sprint tries and things like that.
Okay. So she wasn't a complete novice.
Not a complete novice, but this was going to be a big leap. And, you know, part of me, I mean, call it chauvinism, or, you know, like, I mean, I don't know. There's probably some term to like judge this behavior or this reaction, but I was like, well, if Stephanie can do it, I can do it too. So you know, I signed up for the Ironman, which is going to be like a year later, and you know, a combination of like a combination of I can do it too, and a combination of having been at her races and having to spectate them. Because when you spectate a race, you know, it's like a 3-hour event, and you see the person for like 15 seconds as they go by. You know, so all this was like, okay, it'd be more fun to do it. I can do an Ironman also. Let me just jump in and try it, right? So actually, my first marathon was in the Ironman. It was Lake Placid. I had never actually done an Ironman, a marathon at that point. And then after the full Iron, we did a couple half irons and things like that. And I eventually just decided that I really liked the running, and I didn't need to swim and cycle to go run. And that's what led me down the path of like, okay, let me just try actually focusing on running. And eventually that turned into, of course, the obsession with like, how do I get into Boston? How do I qualify for Boston? You know? Which, you know, for me was like a 4-year project to get my marathon time from like a 3:30 something, which is where I naturally was, to under 3 hours.
Wow! Because the Ironman was 2013, was that right? Around there?
It was Placid 2012.
2012. Okay. And then it was a year later you decided to start some running. But Lake Placid, I mean, maybe you can give me some tips maybe for another video, because I've gone from running and I'm doing my first 70.3 in July.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I don't know how you guys, and when I did do a live chat a few weeks back, we'd all concluded some of the viewers, listeners live have done full Ironman as well, and are quite competitive at the sharp end. And they're saying the amount of time and training, how do you fit in a job? I mean, how did you fit in with all the training? Just to finish, it takes hours and hours each week.
Yeah. So training for a full Iron is really challenging, because I mean, you're essentially doing a long run and a long bike ride every weekend, and that's your weekend, and then you're doing that through the week. I actually really love the 70.3 distance. It's long enough that you don't need to be super fast and powerful, but it's short enough that you can go for a training ride for like 3 hours on a Saturday morning, and it doesn't kill your entire day. Whereas with the full Iron, you need to go on like an 8 or 9 hour training ride. And then you're not doing anything else, right?
Well, 8 or 9 hours. I mean, I think last year during lockdown I did do a 200 miler, but that knocked me out for 2 weeks, so I had no other training. It was just to go out for a bike ride. But it's tough. It's not.
I don't think my bike seat I don't think I could sit on the bike for 200 miles.
It was a challenging day. I might send you the link of that video. You know, if you've got people asking you for content, it was just literally me and my camera for, I think I started, it was 5 a.m. And unfortunately, due to an incident which happened towards the end of my ride where the police had put up roadblocks. They probably heard me thinking, he's coming to finish his 200, we're not letting him through. So I got back, it was about 9:30 in the evening. So that was a 14-hour day. But there was lots of snack stops, and obviously I had fish and chips, as you do in England, and all sorts. But the training is pretty intense. Is that one of the things that sort of led you more to do less but still enjoy the running, or did you feel you had something to offer with running? Because you're now running at astonishing times. You've done a sub-3, you've qualified for Boston. Is that what sort of lent you to the running side?
I think, well, I didn't have any ideas about what I could do with running. I just knew that I really enjoyed the running part of triathlons. And we're seeing this, I call it the triathlonization of running, basically, is happening now with some of the shoe gear and some of the tech. But
tell me about it.
But this is back, I guess like 7 years ago. One of the things that kind of got to me was that people would dump so much money into their bikes.
Yeah.
And they were like, well, if I spend, $20,000 on a bike, I'm going to be really fast. So actually my favorite part of triathlon was and maybe this is why running was my favorite part of triathlon, because on the bike, I get passed by these guys on these really expensive bikes with like disc wheels and like, they pay like $2,000 for the pedals that weigh nothing and all this stuff. They would crush me on the bike, and then we get out on the run and they'd be walking by mile 3.
Yeah. Yeah.
And to me, it was like, okay, like, yeah, you beat me on the bike by 10 minutes, but you can't dump money into running the same way you can dump money into cycling, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And of course, like this, this is not the pro level. This is like everybody trying to win their age group to get into Kona, in this level, right? And then I don't know, that just kind of turned me off, like that I would never really be good at triathlon unless I was willing to commit money to my gear. Plus the high of just like passing a ton of people on the run was like, oh, I should just run.
It is for those who are watching this, there is quite a feeling, isn't there, Stephen? Because I did do a triathlon last year. It wasn't quite a 70.3, it was a different brand, but the distances were similar. And I think the swim was a little longer, the bike was a little longer, but the run was slightly shorter by half a K or a kilometer. But I loved mine was just an $100 bike. So, I was just happy to finish, but the joy and feeling of passing runner after runner after runner, I'm thinking, guys, what's happened to you? It's like, and I didn't have any carbon plated shoes or anything. And they're looking at me thinking, is this guy on steroids? And I'm going, no, I'm just enjoying me run. Come on, let's catch up. But,
right. I trained for it after I got off my road bike with clip-on aero bars. Like I
haven't even got those, Steve. So maybe after this we'll talk more about tactics. But yeah, even with 70.3, I'm doing 14-hour training weeks, which is quite. In fact, I've just come back from a 3-kilometer swim, and I think, I still smell of chlorine from the pool. So it is tough. But with the running, you joined, and I've got to put this in because I love New York. And when you mentioned that you went to New York University and also you joined a New York run club, it's one of my favorite, I nearly said my kind of town. That's Chicago, isn't it? But we all love this tune, don't we, Stephen?
New York, New York.
Yeah.
Tell me about New York and Central Park. I mean, it's your home. It's your home.
Yeah,
I mean,
Strava might be able to calculate this, but I can't tell you how many miles I ran in that park. And when we were living in New York, we were about 3 blocks away from Central Park, so it was a no-brainer to just go out, do a loop or two. The loop is about a 10K. So great place to train.
Perfect for training.
No, it's perfect. It's not flat, but after being in Colorado a bit, Harlem Hill is like a bump. But for road running, it's also, you know, a nice challenging course as well.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, have you ran New York Marathon?
Oh, several times, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you've done 22 miles and then you come to the Central Park area and it's like a mountain. I know you live in a mountainous area, but it felt like a mountain. And I think the year I ran it, Shalane Flanagan won it after having bumped into her in Manhattan the day before. So maybe I was a good omen to her. Both her and Paula Radcliffe, I saw at the same time. I've got a little video of her, which I was very proud to put on YouTube. But
Cool.
but people warned me of that hill. I mean, how did you cope with that? I mean, did you feel like, because you've been running around there so often, did you feel like, well, this is just part and parcel? Were you prepped for it, or were you out of gas when you got to it?
I was out of gas, but you know, one advantage of it being the hometown course is that, like, I know exactly where all the hills are, right? So you know where to push, you know where you've got a bit of a downhill to recover and get your heart rate down a little bit. But yeah, no, New York is not an easy course by any measure. And from mile 20 on, it's this slow climb up Fifth Avenue. Fifth Avenue there into the park. There's nothing easy about it. It's just, but New York has crowds like none other. So despite
it's incredible,
despite the pain and despite the hills at the end, you know, if you're somebody who thrives on the energy of the crowd, there's nothing like it.
It's just, I mean, even now I'm coming up with goosebumps on myself. Just the thought, I've only ran it the once. I know I've got to go back there, maybe for my 65th birthday. I don't know. But it's something special. And I think all the majors are special in different ways. And we can talk about your time where you got your PB in Chicago, but each one of them is unique, and Boston Marathon as well. But the crowds of New York, there's nothing. I mean, the day, I don't know what year you ran it, but 2017, I think there was 2.8 million came out across the whole course, because the beauty of New York is it's through all 5 boroughs, and everybody who lives there seem to all come out. you know, it's like part of the festival of which is very different to some of the other marathons. Certainly in the UK, I've ran some places where people are still in bed. They don't want to come out. And, they don't want to come out and celebrate with you, because it's a strange thing. But New York is quite incredible. But tell us more about how, when you joined the New York Running Club, and what you decided to be goal oriented. You want to go for Boston. Tell us a bit about that journey from stopping your triathlons, and then you decided, I want to take this running seriously, and I want to qualify, as everybody does, for Boston.
Yeah. So after I kind of was over triathlon a bit, I had been working my corporate job quite a bit. So like running was just something I did mostly as a stress relief mechanism. I wasn't like trying to do much with it at all. But it was my wife actually who said to me, like, you're never going to get faster unless you run with people.
Yeah.
So if anybody's not familiar with the New York City running scene, basically there are a whole host of running clubs in the New York Roadrunner like ecosystem. And New York Roadrunners is the organization that puts on the New York City Marathon. There's a bunch of running clubs under that umbrella. And it benefits you to be part of these running clubs just because, aside from like all the social stuff, there are competitions within the NYRR system. There's teams can get spots into the marathon, although it's not difficult to get into New York. There's a lot of avenues in, like you don't have to be fast. There's other ways to get into it. So I joined a team called the Dashing Whippets. And
that sounds good.
Yeah, no, it's a great team. Mostly because their workouts were on 72nd Street inside of Central Park, which was not far from where I was living. So it was easy to get there after work. And yeah, I mean, running lone wolf to running with a running club, like it made all the difference in the world in terms of consistency and pushing myself, and not wanting to be the person at the back of the workout, like, me too, guys, wait for me, right? They just carry you along. But that also made me realize that, and then this kind of gets into where some of the serious runner stuff comes from, is that in the running scene, at least in New York, because that's all I can really speak to, people really sort of define themselves by their running times. And it was very evident that, like, you weren't a real runner unless you, like, were good enough to get into Boston. Which was fun. I mean, I was incredibly lucky. I joined the Dashing Whippets at the same time as like 7 other people who were all in like my pace range.
Yeah. And
so it was a goal for all of us, right? Like, okay, we're going to work together. We're going to qualify for Boston. Like, we're all going to do it. And that sort of support and motivation was, I mean, it's invaluable. Who knows if I would have done it if I didn't have the support of my Whippets teammates.
It sounds incredible, because I've seen some of the pictures that you had, and obviously you've got some great team camaraderie there between yourselves, and it does make it more of a team feeling, doesn't it? As you've said, at New York, when there's other people, it does spur you on, and I know there's a lot of people, myself included. I'm very much a lone wolf trainer, purely because of the work that I do and the times that I'm out training. But when I'm with other people, it makes, certainly on the long runs, it's so much easier. You're just chatting with people, with or without the GoPro, and enjoying it, and it helps. That helps it's part of the process, really, isn't it? It's not just the end goal. But how was Boston for you? Because you ran, but before I talked Boston, was it Chicago 2018?
Yeah, so I actually qualified for Boston, I think twice at the New Jersey Marathon, which
okay,
I have very conflicted feelings about that race, but I won't get into it. But basically, I had hit my BQ time twice, but then didn't make the cutoff.
Right.
And I think it was the third time that I BQ'd, I was finally underneath the cutoff. And then, which was also at the New Jersey Marathon, which I've run like 4 times. And then Chicago 2018 was actually the last road marathon I ran, except for Boston, but it was the last one that I really trained for.
Right.
Where I actually got my. Here's a question for you: How come in the States it's a PR, but in the UK it's a PB?
PB. Well, again, personal record, personal best. It's just, I guess, the British media always talk about PBs and personal bests. Although I've now heard, and maybe a question back to you, Stephen, is what's lifetime best? How does that differ from PR or PB? Because I've heard lifetime best.
Oh, I don't know. I haven't heard that one yet.
No? Oh, Stephen, you need to get onto the British commentary team, because all I hear now is lifetime best. And I'm thinking, well, that's a personal best, isn't it? Or personal record.
Yeah.
No, I think it's very much an American, the PR. I understand the PRs, but again, PR in UK is, to do with press releases and so on, and press coverage. But I don't know. Maybe it's one of these, as I say, Britishism, Americanisms, where things are just slightly different. And obviously, when you got people like, dare I say, Austin Powers.
Yeah, baby, yeah.
His humour is very different to other people. Some get it, some don't. But so you ran Boston before you done Chicago?
No. Sorry. So Chicago was first. So and then Boston was after Chicago. And I was one of those people who showed up to Boston less trained for Boston than for the race that I qualified in.
Yeah. Okay.
Which Boston's interesting. You get misseeded all the time because people like train really hard to get in, but then train less for the race itself. So
it's almost life, isn't it? But this is how random life can be. So I did have, in fact, I've got it here, and I don't know if to bring it in with the Serious Runner, but obviously, if you look at the brand, this is this was my freebie from Tracksmith. You know, I do like that. In fact, this I've not even unwrapped yet. I don't even know what it is. It was on camera, but I got my Tracksmith freebies when I got to Boston. I did stay there a while, but there's a bit of randomness for you. Is we both ran Chicago the same year.
Oh yeah.
And your fastest time was a little ahead of me on my fastest time. It was quite a cold, drizzly day, wasn't it? That 2018 Chicago.
It
but
was.
It was the year that Mo Farah won. Mo Farah won
Yes.
that one, didn't he? Yeah. And I bumped into Galen Rupp, but again, it was the day after the marathon, so he should have really bumped into me the day before, and maybe he could have won. But he was positively injured when I saw him in downtown Chicago, and he was happy enough to chat with me and so on, because I don't think I found it ironic that he's the #1 American marathon runner, and I recognized him straight away. But there's all these locals all walking around not knowing at all who he is. You know, it'd be in the UK, if Mo Farah was walking down the high street, he'd be flooded with people wanting photos, because everybody recognises Mo Farah, but nobody seemed to recognise Galen Rupp apart from me. So I think he was happy just to say, oh, someone's recognised me. Hey, Galen, how did it go? Yes, but he was limping quite badly, so I'm guessing he was carrying quite an injury. But how was Chicago for you? That, you know, it's your PR. I nearly said PB.
No, it's my PB.
Does that make it more special for you? Does that make it more special for you? Or, you know, it's a great city, nice and flat.
It's a great city. It's really flat and fast. I was having a great race. I wish I had done better. I actually twisted my ankle in the last 10K. That's I discovered, because it was so rainy that day. Yeah,
that's right.
I discovered that the Vaporfly shoes like slip on wet manhole covers. So I was gunning for a 250 that day, and then just twisted my ankle in the last 10K, and wound up with a 1 second PB at the end of it.
Hey, you know, they all count, but
a PB's a PB.
Exactly. And I think you might have got a few more if it wasn't for that pesky little hill at the end, you know. Where you turn right. I know that we've got left on Hereford, right on Boylston, or is it right on Hereford, left on Boylston?
Right on Hereford, left on Boylston.
Yeah, I don't know what the quote is for Chicago, but that pesky hill, you know, where you go right and then you go left, that right turn up that sharp hill and then left down to the home straight. I mean, I was warned by that, and I was taken on a walk a few days beforehand by a local, do you call them Chicagoites? I don't know what the word is for people from Chicago, but anyway, that was certainly good fun. But Boston, how was that for you? You know, as an experience and as a race.
I mean, Boston, as much as I joke about it, Boston. I mean, it's a great race. I think I've often wondered if Boston would be so special, though, if so much wasn't put into Boston, right? So like what I mean by that is, for me, actually getting to run Boston was the finish line of 4 years of work of trying to get in, right? So it was like very personal, very emotional to be like, wow, like, you know, I set my sights on this goal and like I did it and I'm here, right? And so I actually think Boston, victory lap doesn't do it justice, because, you know, like that's not quite right. It's sort of like I don't know, it's like a celebration of like goal setting more. So I mean, it wasn't my best race. I think it was like 10 minutes slower than my PR, just because I wasn't, you know, as trained for it. But I mean, an incredible experience and a real I mean, I just love the atmosphere of Boston. It doesn't quite have as much energy as New York. When you get closer to like downtown Boston, it picks up. The beginning miles are a little sparse.
That first 6 miles downhill.
Yeah, but that's okay, because you're like bombing downhill. Like you don't need the crowds at that point. But yeah, no, it was just an awesome feeling to like finally get there and get to race it.
and you got your jackets and
Oh yeah,
you got all the gear. You went to the expo.
I actually ordered 2 jackets because I wasn't sure that I'd be able to get in again.
Right.
And I was like, what if I lose one, or like, put a hole in one of them or something?
Yeah. I wish I had mine here so we could compare jackets and do the old joke. But yeah, this hat follows me everywhere. It's the only Tracksmith bit of gear that I've got because I can't afford the well, I mean the prices are quite something, aren't they? But
Yeah,
let's move on to the serious runner. And for those, if you're okay with this, Stephen, I can share live the day in the life of a serious runner, which is about 2 minutes. Shall we share that with the audience?
Sure.
And we can have a quick look. So what I'll do is I'm going to do share screen, and I'm going to go with this and select the let's go with the select, just so I do select the correct one. Here we go. So everybody can see me and Stephen on the left here. So this is Stephen's YouTube channel, the Stephen Gnoza, and there's a lot of content that you've got. So we've got the serious runner running a marathon, satire. We'll talk about what and some serious stuff as well, because you are a top runner. We'll talk more about that as well. But just as a quick intro, I'm going to select this one, and obviously there's an advert beforehand.
Yeah, but I don't qualify for the YouTube ad program yet.
Hold on. Right.
So I don't get any money.
Here we go. Absolutely brilliant. I've got to say, Stephen, I mean, I was holding back because obviously this is, let's take that one out. I've got to put my hat on in honor. Here's my Tracksmith hat. I got my Morton bottle.
There we are. Oh, there you go.
What is it with? When I first saw that, I thought that sort of summarized, because I've been on Instagram. I started an Instagram account purely to record my journey of running, because I was just going to run this half marathon for the charity, and then that would be it. So people would have a log, and obviously one thing led to another. But what inspired you to do that type of content, because there's so many more videos. If people, as I say, follow the link below, subscribe to Stephen's channel and watch it. There's so many, because those are what I call nice bite size. You know, it doesn't go on for 20 minutes, 30 minutes, which maybe we could do a drama for that, but it goes straight to the point. It's very humorous, very funny, but it's true for a lot of people, you know, who are serious runners. I mean, what inspired you to that, Stephen? I know you mentioned about the team at New York, the Whippets.
Yeah.
Did you come across? Have you come across people who do that?
Oh, I come across a lot of people who do that, and not so much on the Whippets, but other running teams in the New York City area. Yeah, I mean, so despite being an older millennial, I'm not like a native social media user, and my corporate job in New York, we were at that time discouraged from using social media.
Yeah.
So like I don't have like a natural affinity to be like, oh, let me do this and like whatever, right? Like to me, my mindset is like, if I'm gonna put something out on the web, you know, has a team of lawyers signed off on it from like a legal point of view and a compliance point of view, and all that.
Because that's the background you're from, isn't it? Yeah. That's
the background I'm from. I mean, my corporate job was basically taking investment pitch books and making videos out of them for like IPO roadshows to help sell investments to people.
Wow.
Right. But because of that, everything, you know, a dozen people have to approve, you know, every sentence in a video.
Absolutely.
So once, you know, so I wasn't even on Instagram until I started running. And then with running and Instagram, I was amazed by how people identified themselves by running on Instagram, right? Like, this is my, like, I'm a runner on Instagram. I'm going to put my PBs in my bio. I'm going to like write what my next race is. I'm like this is going to be the whole feed. And I'm also going to do things like gram my favorite products, right? Even though they're not paying me to do so, which was a completely bizarre notion to me. Yeah. And it kind of reminded me of 8th grade, where but when I was in 8th grade, like, it was still really cool to wear like sweatshirts with like a brand name on it, like, you know, and like if you weren't wearing the right brands, like the kids made fun of you. Like if you went and shopped at Old Navy, it was like, ooh, like, why aren't you wearing Tommy Hilfiger, right? So it kind of struck me as 8th grade all over again. And I was really curious about, specifically coming from more of a business mindset, about how the business structure of brand ambassadorships worked, in terms of people like getting free gear and then promoting them on social media, and like who is really benefiting from these relationships, right? Like if you know, and all the brands have these, right? Whether it's like the Goose Salty Squad or like the Rad Pro or whatever it is, right? So once I had decided I was going to start getting back into making videos for myself, because, as a side note, doing corporate video for so many years, I was completely burned out on video. Like, I didn't want to do any of it. Like, I have no video of me trying to get into Boston, even though it probably would have been a really cool story to have documented. Yeah. At that time in my life, I was like, I did not want to pick up a camera. I was just completely burned out on it. But once I had finally gotten like over that and was trying to get back into video, I tried to put together a documentary that would explore the brand ambassador programs and sort of just social media in general, right? You know, like, is social media helping? Does seeing what everybody else is doing on Strava and how fast they're doing it, is that helpful or is that harmful? Is that pushing people to injury? You know, kind of like how all these things come together. You know, we still see, you know, brands investing in influencers who are not professional athletes versus professional athletes. So, you know, all these different aspects of social media in running at a pro and amateur level, I just thought it was terribly interesting. And so I tried to put together this documentary about it. and it failed. I gave up on it basically because I couldn't convince the brands to go on camera to talk about their side of it. I could convince people who are ambassadors to do it, because, like, I mean, if you're on Instagram in a brand ambassador program, you say yes to somebody putting a camera in your face, but but the brands were like, no.
Fascinating.
Yeah, so that project kind of died, but then that led to the idea of like building a YouTube channel, right? And I actually did not know where to start. And right now the YouTube channel has a bunch of different content on it, right? There's there's the serious runner stuff, right?
Yeah.
But there's also the other jokey videos. There's an actual training series that I did, training for Black Canyon.
Yeah.
Some other random stuff. And my strategy was to make several different types of content in different forms, and look at the analytics and see what people wanted. Right. Kind of, and this is what I do now professionally more recently, user experience. And user experience is typically in the technology world in terms of product development, right? And a big thing about user research is making sure you're building the right thing, right? You don't want to dump a ton of money into building a product to find out that your users want something else.
Yeah.
So with that mindset, I was like, okay, I'm going to make several different types of videos. YouTube has all these analytics. I'm going to see what resonates and what takes off. And so I took like all my interest in the failed documentary and kind of spun it into this humor where, I was going to call out, not so much make fun of people or things, but make fun of people's reactions to those things. And that became the foundation of the Serious Runner concept. And I made that first video. And like you said, the Tracksmith stuff is incredibly expensive. Like, I think this thing is $75 or something. Wow. Ridiculous.
But you do use it on every video, so you're getting your money's worth.
Well, my original intention was to buy it and then return it.
Okay. You can do that with Tracksmith.
but then the first video took off, and I was like, oh, I guess I'm eating this as a production cost. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then the analytics were very clear that, the Serious Runner videos were outperforming all the other content on the page. And, that's, clearly I struck a nerve. Like, I'm not the only person thinking these things.
No.
And so that's where I'm going to invest, my creative energy.
It's fantastic to see that, because I've attempted a few about 4 years ago. I had Marathon Marco. And again, I'll send you the link separate. You can have a giggle at that. And prior to lockdown, because I've seen on my analytics that I can spend weeks and months training for a 3-hour marathon and show it all there, and I get a certain amount of views, but one of my most viewed videos is me opening a box. So, it's the world we live in, Stephen, the world we live in. So, but I know what I get more enjoyment from. So for me, it's not about the analytics, it's what I enjoy producing. So I produced one to counteract that, and created a character called Dr. Sammy Chu, who's the #1 running shoe designer in the world. And he's in character, and he does various interviews with people, and we talk about running shoes in a very, straight talking way. It's about the color, it's about how much you spend and all that type of stuff. Yeah, that's what makes you faster. A bit like the analogy of the triathlons, spending $20,000 on a bike. Good God. So yeah, I mean, it's I think there's definitely a demand there for parody. I think there have been other people who've attempted it, and for whatever reasons, and I mean, we could almost do a video of the reasons why people stop doing YouTube, because that's another interesting angle. But it's great to see that getting out there, and no pressure on you, Stephen. But I discovered a particular comedian in the UK back in the early 90s. You won't know his name, but I went to one of his first gigs in Cheltenham, and it was an auditorium or a town hall. It was for 300 people seating, and big build up. I went there, and he's from my local town in the Midlands, and we turned up, and there were 6 of us in the audience. That was it. Ooh. 6. Yeah, so he was just getting started, but he performed as a true professional, whether there were 6 or whether there were 600. He performed his performance, and we loved it. And at the end, he says, just tell your friends. Within 6 weeks, it was a sellout because me and the other friends told other people. And who knows, Stephen, you know, I'll put it in your diary. When you've got 100,000 subs with your Serious Runner, come back for another interview, because there's definitely a need there. And the way you produce them is extremely professional. It makes mine look very amateur, but then I'll just walk around holding my GoPro. That's my camera now. That's all it is. But I can only wish you all the best, because it is hilarious. I mean,
thank you.
The stuff with Strava. I mean, I only recently joined Strava, very reluctantly, but people didn't believe the training that I was doing. So, you know, that's their beef, not mine. So I've got a Strava account now. But this thing about if it's not on Strava, it never happened. I says, well, obviously, you know, I never ran it, but it's definitely a certain type of person does that description where, you know, when you describe the sub 5, I won't name and shame the YouTuber, but he's done that. You know,
yeah.
He didn't go sub 5. I think it was about 5:20. I mean, mine is 5:30 on a proper, you know, flat, no tailwind or anything like that. But that one, I just laughed so much because, you know, what made you do? I know it was about sub 2 and getting the right conditions. Yours, I mean, talk us through why you went for the sub 5. This is a sub 5 minute mile, by the way, people watching, and not a sub 5 hour marathon, which I know some people want to do, but 5 minute mile. It was a 20 second, 40 second PB for you as well, PR.
I mean, if you're going to count it, my proper marathon PR is around like a 5:30 or something.
Yeah.
You know, I just don't have that leg speed, not running in high school or college. But yeah, I mean, that was largely inspired by the Breaking 2 and the 159 project and all those efforts, which again, to me, are kind of like the triathlonization. I got to come up with a better way to say that of running, right?
Yeah.
Where like I don't know, I thought it was kind of silly that, you know, they were going to try to attempt this in perfect conditions with the truck blocking the tailwind and the pacers and the 8 on the bottles and all this stuff, right? I mean, like, I hope somebody breaks it in a proper race. I mean, Kipchoge could probably do it in a proper race. I hope he does, because to me, like, coming from a little bit of a marketing background, like I get that they're selling shoes.
Yeah.
So, you know, that was just, you know, it was a windy day here in Colorado, and it was like, oh, okay, like I can make a funny video, kind of maybe drawing inspiration from Breaking 2 and 159 in a different way, right? And not so much like I'm going to get out and work hard, but I'm going to get out and capitalize on the conditions that are available to me at this moment to do something that I ordinarily could not do.
Yeah.
But, you know, like, ranting about that on Twitter is not my style. I just make a video that sarcastically addresses it. It just creased me up. And yeah, I mean, downhill with the wind behind you. Oh, yeah. It's fantastic, you know. And I talked my wife into GoProing. She was riding her bike alongside me, getting the GoPro shot. Yeah. And it was so windy that day. Like, she... kind of surprised she didn't like get blown over on the bike or something. but yeah, my PR is 4:59.
Wow, because we can talk about all the other. We could talk here for hours. Maybe another interview we'll go through, and we'll do the reaction type videos, reacting to your own videos. We could do that as a sort of fun one, maybe another time. But yeah, so on the Strava, obviously you never say that it was downhill and a tailwind or anything. But when you got a headwind. Oh, yeah. And it's snow. I mean, that winter training video you've done as well is, you know, I know people out there who were going out in X foot of snow, and I'm thinking, you ain't running. But hey, you know, I think one of the top social media influencers, I think she's Italian, and because we can talk more about how the phrase hobby jogger. I'd never heard of hobby jogger.
Oh,
we have joggers here in the UK, but a lot of people do not like to be referred to as a jogger. But one of the premier social influencers is called the Vogue Jogger, and I think she's from Italy, and she's got like tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of followers, and she runs. She's a pretty decent runner as well, but she goes by, because I think in Europe it's okay to use the word jogger. You know, anyone who's not professional refers themselves to a jogger, but I guess in the States, though, hobby jogger is a completely different thing. Tell us a little more about what's a hobby jogger? How did that phrase come about?
So I can't take credit for this. The hobby jogger, I actually have no idea who originally coined this term, but it's a term that's used a lot on the letsrun.com message boards, which if are you familiar with Let's Run?
No, I don't use Let's Run, no. Is that where people vent their spleens now and again and have a bit of a rant?
Yeah, there is. There's a message board on letsrun.com that you can post to anonymously. So as you can imagine.
Oh, wow.
So
it's a bit like Twitter on heat.
Yeah, people speak their minds. It's a little toxic, and hobby jogger is thrown around there as a condescending term for anybody who's not fast, right? And what's
fast is relative, isn't it? You know?
Yeah, I mean, like people on Let's Run, like, well, claim if you're slower than 2:30 in the marathon, you're a hobby jogger, right? But like, you also don't know who these people are. Like, they could never have run a marathon in their life.
Yeah.
So, but as a serious runner, this is where I get all my running news and tips and tricks and make fun of other runners and things like that. So
absolutely.
So hobby jogger is just a term that the character has adopted. And again, like my strategy with these videos is not to make fun of slow people, right? That would just be miserable. Like what kind of person would I be if I made fun of somebody who's slow? But making fun of how people view slow people is a way that, and I hope this is coming across, like that's the way that I'm using the term, right?
It's more the reaction. It is absolutely brilliant, and I think I'm very conscious of our time, Stephen, and we could talk forever and ever and ever, but I did say that I do tend to have it as a bit of a tradition to wrap up these interviews with a quick, fast, 5 and furious. So 5 questions, all pretty random, and it's just one or the other answer, And so I'll give you 2 choices and you can choose one. It's really simple. And there's no right or wrong, Stephen. So nobody's going to be answering and pressing buzzers. And although maybe we could do a parody video on this as well. but yeah, so.
It's like running. What's the running dating app going to be, right? Like,
well, would you believe, and this is some more content for you, Stephen. The last interview I done was with an ex-England international runner, and he's now director of a running. He organises running events. He's the director of Run Through UK, and he said one of the things that people go to his events for is for dates. They go dating on a run. So there you go. Maybe we should do run date or something. But or date my run.
A serious runner goes on a date.
Yeah, during a race. Yeah, I mean some of the things I've videoed. What people are chatting, I have seen guys chatting up girls during races, and they're not running, they're just having a chat. But anyway, we'll go on to fast, 5 and furious. So question number 1, what would you say, Stephen, is tougher, a super fast 5K all out or an ultra run?
Super fast 5K.
Okay. Question number 2, cream cake or cheesecake?
Cheesecake, but vegan.
Very good, very good. Question 3, a little bit YouTubey this. Ginger runner or Seth Demore?
Ginger runner.
Number 4, a social media type question. Instagram or Twitter?
This is a tricky. I will go with my aspirational answer of Twitter.
Excellent, excellent. And last but not least, this is on American Satire. Friends or Cheers?
Ooh, Cheers.
Cheers, Boston. Absolutely. out of interest, did you, when you were at Boston Marathon, did you go to the venue of Cheers?
I've been at the Cheers bar, not when I was in Boston for the race, but
Okay.
but on a
you've
different
been there
time.
before. Okay,
Yep.
yeah, it's a must-see place if you're ever in Boston, guys. So I'd never been to Boston before, so I went straight to the Cheers bar. I can't remember. Yeah, it was after the race, not before. But it's one of your videos, a beer. I'm training for a marathon. Get your Morton out. But all I can say, Stephen, is thank you so much for the time that you've given to come on here and sharing your running story and the Serious Runner and the Satire. It is absolutely fantastic to have you on it. And as I say, when you become much more famous, and now we'll have you back on the show, and we can talk about how it all kicked off, because it's already kicking off anyway. And I think once word gets out, I'll put it on all my social meds, even on LinkedIn, which I know is serious, but when you find me there, I'm just running with my Olympic torch, because that's what I do, as we do in England.
Yeah, running content on LinkedIn, that might be an untapped market. I don't know.
Well, I am connected with the product developer of Puma, so I think more professional, those in the industry are there. I've not come across any YouTubers on there promoting themselves. So, but as I say, I do things a little differently, and that's what we can do, can't we, Stephen? So we push the envelope out. But it's been an absolute joy.
Yeah,
chatting with you. I had so much more I wanted to talk about, but we've nearly done a whole hour of recording. So all I can say is thank you for your time, and I really appreciate everything that you do, and love your content, and I'm looking forward to more. So
yeah,
thank you.
Thank you for having me on. This has been a lot of fun, and yeah, I feel like we just kind of scratched the surface. So yeah, if you want to do this again, I'm game for it.
We'll have to get you back on. So leave the questions, guys, and I know a lot of you will have lots of questions for Stephen, whether it be professional in terms of his training, qualifying for Boston, or about the Serious Runner and some parody ideas and sketches which Stephen can do, or we could help contribute to.
Yeah, I mean, the biggest challenge I'm trying to figure out right now with the YouTube channel is, do I go all in on Serious Runner or not? Do I rename the channel Serious Runner and just only do that, or have it be one variety of content in the space? So be curious to hear if anybody has any ideas there.
Absolutely. So you heard that, guys. Leave it in the comments below, because I know you're all very varied from your backgrounds and stuff. So what do you want to watch on YouTube? What would you like Stephen to produce? Thank you so much, Stephen. And we'll definitely do a follow-up on this, I'm sure. So thank you for your time.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Thank you, everybody, for watching. You know the usuals. As Stephen said on some of his videos, give this a thumbs up, subscribe below, and tell us what you want to see in your next video. Thank you, and good night. And chin chin, we'll put our glasses up. Cheers.